everyone, Janie here, and today I'm going to be using Me Crafty Al's August sheet load of cards sketch to make 12 beautiful Christmas cards. And I'm going to put a link to her video right here on the screen so that you can download her sketch and supply list, and I will also put a link below in the description box. And while you're there, you might want to subscribe to her channel so that you don't miss out on any future sheet load of cards. To make these cards, I'm using some beautiful Christmas papers and cardstock that I've had in my stash for years because my goal is to use what I have and to encourage you to do the same. I know we all have stuff in our stash that we have probably forgotten about. So here are all the pieces cut out according to Me Crafty Al's instructions, but I'm doing something a little different. Instead of assembling those pieces directly to the card base, I wanted to have another layer behind it. So for each card, I cut a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of cardstock, and using my favorite paper saving technique, I cut out the center using a stitched rectangle cutting die. But you can always do this with a paper trimmer or a craft knife. And I'll be using that extra piece later in the video. And now that I have those glued to the card bases, it's time to start putting things together. Okay, because the cardstock that I used, or the paper I used, has a white background, it also has white edges. And since I'm not putting this on a white card, then I don't want those white edges to stand out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink all of the edges using frayed burlap distress ink. You can use whatever color you want, including, the color of this. I could have used green, but I'm just going to do all of the edges in the frayed burlap because these are a little bit, vintage, or at least, the coloring. They're not bright colors or anything. And so I think that the frayed burlap is subtle enough to go around all of the edges, and so I'm not going to make you watch all of that, but I just wanted to show you what I was doing on the edges. So I'm going to go ink all of these and then I'll be back. Okay, now that I've got all of the edges inked, which by the way is optional, I am going to show you how to put the cards together, and I'm just going to be putting 2 of them together right now so you can see how it's done. And then I'm going to put the rest of them together in kind of an assembly line way. So let's get started. Oh, and I wanted to point out, this looks orange, but in my previous pictures that you've seen, I had taken those pictures with my camera, and you can tell that is actually a really deep burgundy or deep red kind of burgundy color. It is not this weird orangey rusty color at all. So you'll see in the finished pictures what it looks like. So what we're going to do is right now, whether or not you have this extra border that I put on there, or whether you're just putting this straight onto, a white card or a craft cardstock card, whatever you're doing, it is time to put on the first layer. So I'm just going to be gluing that on like that. Now, I am not doing them all at once right now, but I wanted to show you. I'm starting with this one. As you go on, they're obviously going to be rotating, so other cards will have this as the base, and other cards will have that as the base. So I just kind of wanted to point it out to you that they're not all going to have the same base, and I just chose to start with this one. So this is where we're just going to be gluing this on. We've got that on there. Whoops. Make sure it's going the right direction. And just center that on there. Like so. Okay. So with mine, it has that background layer. Yours may just show the white of the card, and I don't know if it's showing up on here at all, but all of this paper has sparkle on it. It is all so pretty, even the dots. I don't know if you can see that, but it's really pretty. Okay, so now that we have this on, now I'm going to grab this piece. Okay, so now it's time to grab 2 more pieces here. And it doesn't matter which order you put them in, really. So, you know, for this one, I may take, well, I'll take this little top one here. And I'm going to take the striped one from here. So, as you can see, we're using all 3 pattern papers on here. Now, when you put these on, it's going to be, you know, you're going to want to do this. That's not how you do it, okay? I'm just showing you that it's just natural for us to want to leave a border, but that's not how this goes. If you want to leave a border, you're actually going to have to cut these pieces a little bit shorter, because she made it so that they go all the way to the edge on both sides like that, and so there's just a little space in between them. So that is what I'm going to be doing right now. Applying a little bit more glue here, and I'm sure if you wanted to do these different, I mean, I'm not doing mine exactly the way she does them. So what I'm trying to say is, if, you know, you have different ideas, like I said, you know, cutting these papers a little bit shorter so that you can leave a border, or maybe you want to, you know, put the papers on differently so that you're not using all 3 on one card. I mean, do what you like. You know, that's what I'm trying to say, is do what you like, because we don't have to do something exactly the way someone else does it. And I don't, as you have seen so far, you know, because I gave it that extra background and stuff. So let me get this one all the way over to the edge, and then I'll show you what this looks like once I get everything lined up. Okay. So as you can see, there is a space in between. And then, of course, border along the sides, but not on the edges. Now, the way I'm doing it, that's going to work out perfect because I already have borders along the edges. So when I put this on, it actually still has those borders. So I like the way I did it. Now, when you put this on here, you can put it on at the very bottom, you can put it on in the middle, just off-centered, however you want to do it. And I'm not really sure, because I hadn't thought about it. You know, the pattern on here, on this one, the snowman is across the top, you know, so you can see them. On this one, I might put it down further for those snowmen to show. But options, options, options. And I really didn't get that one lined up exactly right either. So let me see. I really don't want to put it down all the way, so I think I'm going to put it about right there. And I'm going to do the other one for you, the other card, but you know what? I definitely will speed it up so that you don't have to watch it in slow motion, but I'm going to still leave it slow enough so that you can see how it was done, just in case you need to see this again. Whoops, almost put it on the wrong way. Okay, I'm going to put this one on right here. Now you're wondering, where's the other part that goes on there? Well, I am going to do that in a little bit, but first I want to get these all ready. That's going to be the last thing that I do. Okay, let's do one more card, and I'm actually going to be using the same paper pattern that I just used, just so I don't get confused, because there will be 2 of each card. I mean, like a green one and a red one. And so I just don't want to get confused. And I am now going to speed this up just a little bit. And that way you can still watch how I'm doing it without having to listen to me go blah, blah, blah. So here we go. Okay, this would have been the perfect time to put on some music for you to listen to, but instead, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Call Me Crafty Al's SheetLoad of Cards. So, Crafty Al does a new card sketch every month that she shares on her channel, and is generous enough to offer a download of that sketch for you to use. So, once in a while, I find one that I really love, and this happens to be one of them, and I wanted to share it with you. If you happen to miss the link that I shared earlier in the video that goes to her video that has the link to this card sketch, I'm going to put it below in the description box for you. And I didn't just want to share the card sketch with you, I also wanted to show you that you can take something like this and put your own spin on it like I'm doing. For example, instead of using one color of cardstock, I'm using two. Instead of gluing these pieces directly to a card base, I cut another layer for the top of the card. And there's also a couple of other changes that I'm making, as you'll see as the video goes on. And I just wanted you to know that it's okay to change things up and do it your way, and I hope this video inspires you to do just that. Okay, and there we go. So I have done one in each color, and now I'm going to show you how I put them together, which is going to be going through and I'm going to be putting on this layer on all of them. Then I'm going to come through and I'm going to be attaching all of these to all of these pieces. Then I'm going to go through and attach all of those pieces to the cards. Okay, let me show you. Okay, I know I just explained to you what I'm doing, but I thought I would give you a visual. For me, it's easier and quicker to go through and put one layer at a time on all of the cards instead of completing one card at a time, but either way you do it, it will go quickly. Okay, with all of that done and out of the way, it's time to move on to the next step. Remember the rectangle piece that I had die cut from that bottom layer? Well, now I'm taking an oval stitched cutting die and cutting that out of the center of the rectangle. And I'm going to be using that rectangle on the inside of the card and have die cut a stitched rectangle from white cardstock to go on top of that for the sentiment. And of course, no one is going to see that oval was cut out of it. And for the oval piece that I had die cut, I have also die cut stitched ovals from white cardstock and will be stamping that with the image that I'm going to be using on the front of the card. And talking about that, it's time to start stamping. As you can see, I'm using the cardstock that I had die cut the ovals from, so I can position the die cut piece to stamp it, and I'm using a piece of Scotch tape to hold it in place. It would be easier to position that oval if I wasn't standing off to the side trying to do it. And I already positioned my stamp by getting it set up on one of the ovals, and it is ready to go. I prefer this method because for me it's faster, but you may prefer to do your stamping before you die cut. Here are a couple of reasons that I don't like to stamp at first. One reason is because if I accidentally stamp them too close together, then it's going to cause issues when I try to die cut. And the other reason is because I don't like to fuss around with the cutting die, trying to make sure I have it in the right place around the stamped image. So doing it this way, the stamped image will land in the right spot every time, and I can get through it quickly. But obviously, if you don't have a stamp platform, then this isn't an option for you, and you are probably a pro at stamping and then die cutting. Oh, and by the way, if you are wondering what I'm using for a pressure tool, yes, you guessed it. That is an air hockey pusher. I made a video a while back on that, and I'll link it here on the screen. And now I'm stamping the sentiment for the inside of the card. You might notice that I've been having to ink the stamp multiple times, and the reason is because my Memento Tuxedo Black ink is running out and needs some re-inker, which, by the way, I don't happen to have. So, guess what I'm going to do as soon as I'm done stamping these sentiments? Yeah, you guessed it. I'm going to throw it in the trash. Bye-bye, Memento ink. It's time for a new one. Okay, moving on. I decided to use frayed burlap distress ink to ink the edges because that cardstock is so stark white against the muted colors of the card, and also to give it a little bit of an aged look. I just thought it would help bring the whole look together. I think you'll agree once you see the finished cards. And now it's time to get to work on the image that's going on the front of the card. I wanted to do a little coloring with my Ohuhu colored pencils to make that snowman coordinate with the snowmen on the paper that I used. And once I got that done, it was time to glue them to those ovals. I love that the oval has a border that matches the borders on the cards. It really brings it all together. So before I put those on the front of the card, I decided to do the inside of the card. And as you can see, no one will ever know that the oval was cut out of that piece of cardstock. And with that done, it's now time to finish the front of the card. Okay, the cards are almost done on the outside and the inside is done. And now it's time to add the final piece. Now, in the original instructions, it was a 2x3 rectangle that you would be cutting out and putting on the front. But I chose to do the oval and that adorable snowman that I just think perfectly goes with it because we have snowmen on here. And so this is what I'm going to be using. And also, I used double-sided foam tape on the back because I want to pop it up just a little bit, give it a little dimension. So another thing I want to say before I get started here is that you can put this anywhere you want. I know in her instructions it goes over here on this side, but you could also put it on this side. So totally up to you, just like the positioning of anything else. And you know me, I usually don't follow somebody's directions exactly. I kind of have to put my own twist on it, and that's what I've been doing. So here we go. I am going to be removing this foam tape, and I'm going to add just a couple of drops of glue to the back. I'm using my Beacon 3-in-1. That's what I've been using all along. It just, it sticks forever. I love it. It's permanent. And it gives me a little bit of wiggle room, and that is the reason I'm putting it on here. Not that I think that the foam tape isn't going to stick, but I just want a little extra wiggle room. So I have decided that for this one, I want to stick it over here. So I'm going to turn this card more toward me because I'm kind of off to this side. So I'm going to center it right there. Like that. And I love the way that looks. Now I'm going to move this over, and for this one I am going to do it off to this side a little bit just so I can show you that it looks good either place. And I also wanted to point out that this looks like a lot of layers, but you have to remember that I only used one piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch cardstock to cut this back layer, the back layer on this, and the back layer for that. So all of that is actually only one piece of cardstock. So it's not as thick or as heavy as you might think. Okay, I'm going to put this one right about there. Let me see. Yep. I think that's exactly where I want it. Let me move it just a tiny bit, I think. Okay. I'm kind of weird here. Just want to make sure that there's enough of this one showing and everything. So get that on there. And there we go. So it doesn't matter where you put that top piece. Wherever you want it is going to be the perfect place for it. Okay, so I'm going to get busy putting all of these on the top of, let me reach it, all the rest of these cards. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I have a wide variety of cards here, 12 beautiful cards, and I want to add a little finishing touch to this. So since it says Let It Snow, I thought I would use Stickles frosted lace and just go around and add a few little random snowflakes on these. And the color isn't true, right here with my webcam, but I will take pictures afterwards so that you can see the true color and the finished cards. And here's what the finished cards look like, including the stickles that I added for the snow. And by the way, there will not be any links below to products used because everything I used is old and no longer available. But I do hope that you learned a few things and got some inspiration, and I hope that you stop by and visit Call Me Crafty Al on her YouTube channel and tell her that Janie the Craft Princess sent you. Happy crafting, everyone. Bye-bye.